TNA has signed a former WWE star. In addition to that, Sami Zayn issues with CM Punk. We're going to discuss that. And a celebrity boxer potentially getting in the ring with WWE. And no, we're not talking about Jake Paul. It's all coming up right here on The Ango Show. All right, guys, I want to kick things off with Tommy Fury. You might have seen him in professional boxing. You might have seen him on Love Island. You might have heard of him, Tommy Fury. Also, the younger brother, half-brother, step-brother of Tyson Fury. He was just backstage at WWE's recent UK tour, and WWE hooked him up with all the action. Basically, he shared a new video on his YouTube channel, and he just talked about pro wrestling in general. A lot of love to Randy Orton, Cody Rhodes, Gunther. He was very appreciative of the experience that WWE provided. But what was actually really interesting here is that he kind of teases jumping into the ring for WWE. And listen, I know some people are probably not going to like this. I was never familiar with Love Island until like a few months ago. But Love Island is a really, really big show. And Tommy Fury, obviously professional boxer, the Fury family is obviously huge, but it's not like Tommy Fury is like this massive name in the boxing world. But at the same time too, when you compare, when you consider kind of like the notoriety that he has in the mainstream culture, you know, with pop culture and reality TV, and then obviously boxing, it does make sense for WWE to do this. And I think a lot of people don't like when I talk about this, but when you see the Costco guys in AEW, when you see Logan Paul in WWE, when you see people that are known outside of professional wrestling, and then they get involved in the WWE, there is a ton of headlines. And listen, that is good for pro wrestling. That is really good for pro wrestling. If you want wrestling to grow, if you want the business to grow, if you want WWE and AEW to grow, you should want more of these celebrities getting involved. Now, the cool thing about Tommy Fury is this dude's an actual athlete. So I don't know if he would be good at pro wrestling, but the likelihood of him being good at pro wrestling is a lot higher than somebody who's just a Hollywood actor who isn't like a athlete of any kind. So I think Tommy Fury jumping into the WWE ring at one point could make a lot of sense. And keep in mind, Tyson Fury did, right? You cannot forget about Tyson Fury and you can't forget about Tyson Fury and Braun Strowman at Crown Jewel years ago. I know not everybody loved it, but at the same time too, it creates those headlines. It gets a lot of people excited. It gets everybody talking, and that's a reason why you should do it. If you're trying to grow the business, that is one of the biggest reasons why you do it. And what's even better is if they do get into the ring and they're actually pretty good, then it even becomes better for maybe long-term potential. So I actually would kind of like to see this happen. All right, guys, let's turn our attention to the next topic that we have, and that is Sami Zayn and the issues that he's had with CM Punk. I actually had no idea at all whatsoever that Sami Zayn had issues with CM Punk. On the latest episode of WWE Playback, Sami Zayn was sitting there with Damian Priest, and they were talking about CM Punk's return. And Sami Zayn was asked by Damian Priest, like, what was going through his mind when CM Punk returned. And actually, what's really interesting is he says that it's kind of hard to say. I think there was still some weird underlying stuff with Punk and I. Punk is, I guess it's pretty well documented that he's an interesting character who's had his ups and downs with most people, both in the ring and backstage. I think there was just some unresolved stuff between he and I. We hadn't spoken for I don't know how many years at this time. Seeing him back at first, it's like, huh? Okay. But we eventually ended up talking and whatever issues out, and you know, it is what it is. It kind of doesn't matter what I think. Look at those people. They are all jumping out of their seats, and I think that's all that really matters. Wow, a little bit to dissect here, right? With Sami Zayn, I didn't know that there was any issues between him and Punk. And maybe years and years ago, maybe there was some headlines in the dirt sheets or whatever. I don't know. I'm not too familiar with that subject matter. But I think it just goes to show you that, like, in professional wrestling, the best thing people can do is not have issues, right? And I talked about this a lot with the CM Punk drama because I know there was so much talks about this. But at the end of the day, especially as a content creator, I like talking about the product. I like talking about the things that are positive in the business of wrestling, because ultimately the more positive stuff that is happening in wrestling, the more the wrestling business grows. It's good for my business. It's good for their business. It's good for the fans. When you hear about drama, specifically backstage drama, I think it takes away a lot from the product. That was very evident with AEW. And I'm not saying this as a knock to AEW, but for a long time, it just seemed like the drama was being discussed more than the actual product itself. Whereas Sami Zayn and CM Punk's issues, I didn't see anybody talking about that. I think there was more of a focal point about the reactions from Seth Rollins and Drew McIntyre, but with Sami Zayn's reaction, you didn't really hear much or see much. So at the end of the day, I think it's a good thing that Sami Zayn actually revealed this information. I think it's a good thing for a variety of reasons, but Sami revealing this information does a couple things, right? One, it shows that they are professionals and they are going to put business first because that is what is important, right? And I think that is huge. I think the second thing is it goes to show you that people understand that people change. And I think that's a big one that people need to understand. People can change. People can have different attitudes. People go through different phases in life. And sometimes as humans, we just need to understand that people can change and they're not exactly who they were before. And I think that's a really good thing to take away from. All right, guys, we have seen her in TNA, but now it's been confirmed TNA has signed Xia Li to a deal. And, we've seen her on TV. We've seen her in the company. We didn't know if TNA was bringing her in just for a couple appearances. We didn't know exactly what the plan was. But Lei Ying Li, a.k.a. Xia Li, is now signed to TNA Impact. They confirmed it with a press release. Really cool stuff, honestly. I'm happy about this. She is talented, and I don't think WWE... Look, WWE has an Intercontinental Championship now on Raw, and they have the United States Championship for the women on SmackDown. And by them releasing Xia Li, she would have been another candidate for someone to be involved in the mix, right? WWE obviously released her. They let her go. They're doing things differently, and that's fine. But this is a good thing for pro wrestling when TNA could sign a former WWE star, put her on TV, and see what opportunities there could be. I think she's talented. I don't think WWE gave her a chance. TNA is the perfect place to go. If you get cut by AEW or WWE, go to TNA, show these companies, and show the fans what they're missing out on. And this is another good example of that. And I think one of the biggest confusions about TNA is that people show up on TV, and then they're only there for a couple appearances, and then they're gone. So I like the fact that there's clarification here that they actually signed her to a deal. They actually brought her into the company. And again, this is an opportunity for her to show everybody what they're missing out on. She still resides in Florida. So the good news is she's still based out of the United States. She's going to do her thing with TNA. And listen, Masha Slamovich is the new women's champion. And maybe Jordan Grace leaves the company in January. So this is an opportune time for her to get in there, get in the mix, make a name for herself, and see what happens. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the Ango Show.